The Baseball Together Network presents the North Chicago Baseball Together podcast with your host, Denise. And now, North Chicago Baseball Together.
Hey everyone, this is Denise and welcome to my North Chicago podcast, recapping June 2022, covering the Chicago Cubs for our Baseball Together family. As always, I want to remind you of the Baseball Together discount you can take advantage of just for listening to my podcast. We have some pretty cool merchandise, general baseball themes, some specific to other teams. But for you all, there is a discount for all North Chicago merchandise. That's what we call our Cubs themed items. So if you click on the Baseball Together link in the description of this podcast page, it'll take you directly to our page with all of the North Chicago items. Simply click on the item you'd like, choose your size if necessary, add it to your cart. But before you check out, make sure you enter the discount code CUBPOD, CUBPOD, and you'll save 15%. You can use this code more than once, so feel free to make a wish list and continuously add to your cart. Purchase something every month. So again, that code again is CUBPOD. So I thought May wasn't kind to the Cubs, and June came in and pretty much said, May, hold my beer. To get to the point, we've just been horrid this month. We have a 9-16 record coming into the last day of the month. Tonight is the rubber match with the Reds, and we're only 1.5 games above them for last place in the division. So we're fourth. We've got a 29-46 record, and we are 14 games out of first place. Again, I keep reiterating this. I didn't expect much, but some of these games, I mean, we're getting absolutely crushed in the run column. And it's not necessarily like lack of offense. We'll score 5, 6, 7, 8 runs, but we're giving up 12, 13, 14, 15 in those same games. So it's the pitching, and it's mainly the bullpen. We had quite a few games this month where we had multiple run leads in like mid to late innings. And then the bullpen, like the starters would get us to like the 5th or the 6th, and we'd have like a 5, maybe a 4 or 5, maybe a 6-run lead. And then all of a sudden the bullpen gives up like, 7, 8, 9 runs in like the last 3 innings. So, I mean, now me being the diehard fan of the Cubs and baseball in general, and having to do this podcast, I still follow them. I have to. But trust me, it's not pleasant at all. It's not fun. I'm admin on quite a few Cubs Facebook pages, and it's monstrous sometimes to read this stuff from the fans, and I get it. It's so frustrating. And then it seems like when we do win, it's like, meh. We're already like it's June, end of June, and I feel like we're already playing the role of spoiler. Like we can't beat like the really, really bad teams, but then we just took 2 out of 3 in St. Louis against the Cardinals, right? And they're battling back and forth with the Brewers, for first place in the division. So it's like, man, just watching them sometimes, I'm just like, I hear my phone go off if I'm not able to watch or listen if I'm out and about, and I hear it and I'm like, Cubs still trail, Cubs still trail, Cubs still trail, whether it's us scoring or the other team scoring, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, just throw in the towel. I think we had position players pitching like 3 or 4 games this season. Frank Schwindel was in like 2 of them. At one point, I think he gave up like 6 or 7 runs. I mean, he was throwing 35-mile-an-hour lobs, to the batters. And it's like slow pitch softball. Just ridiculous. Anyways, so, yeah, it's been such a bad month. I really don't know what to even expect for the rest of the season. Probably what I expected for this whole season. Just not much. But we're also about a month away from the trade deadline, which usually it's always been the last day of July. But this year it's August 2nd. However, the trade talks are already starting, and Willson Contreras is right at the top of these talks. He continues to have one of his best offensive years. He's hitting .280 with 13 home runs and a .913 OPS. He was the top vote getter for National League catchers in the first round of the All-Star voting. So now he makes his way to the next round for like the finalist, where voting starts on that on Tuesday, July 5th. He should claim it. I think he was about 500,000 or 600,000 votes over Travis d'Arnaud on the Braves. And he pretty much led the catching category almost the whole time of the first round. So hopefully, I'm hoping he claims it. And because, I mean, he leads the NL catchers in most of the offensive categories. David Ross has been alternating him between catcher and DH with Yan Gomes for several of the last few weeks. So it's like he'll start at catcher, and then the next night he's the DH, and then the next night he's catcher and Gomes is the DH, and it just keeps alternating. I don't know if they're saving his knees, what they're doing, but quite last few weeks it's alternating. So he's in the lineup almost every day, but it's just a matter of whether he's the catcher or the designated hitter. Again, still no extension talks. Most experts say he's as good as gone at the trade deadline, which means I will have to deal with a very depressed 10-year-old son along with myself, because Contreras is his favorite player. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not obviously 100% guaranteed. Nothing's 100% guaranteed, but I'll be very, very shocked if he doesn't go. Ian Happ is another player that's continuing to rake with any consistency. He's hitting .275 with an .831 OPS and 37 ribbies. He was also, I think he was in the top 10 for All-Star voting for outfielders. He didn't make the cut, which is, unfortunate. I mean, he could still make it, maybe as like an alternate. He might get named. And Happ could be another trade candidate as well, which would then get rid of my daughter's favorite player. So, again, it's good to see some of these guys, having great years, but the problem is that they then become trade bait, especially since, we're just not doing well. It's not like we're in the running for anything, and, we're going to get who we get, to try to, they say we're not in a rebuild, but I don't know what else to call this. Nico Horner is rounding out very nicely, both offensively and defensively. He's hitting .304. He's got a .341 on base percentage, 63 hits and about 200 some at bats. But again, I mean, three guys can't make your entire offense. I talked last month about Christopher Morrell. He's cooled off quite a bit. He went from being our regular leadoff hitter to the ninth batter a game or two ago, because his strikeout rate was like 50%. Like out of 32 at bats, he struck out 16 times. So, I mean, he's striking out like half the time. So Ross finally kind of dropped him down into the order. And last night, he hit a 2-run bomb. I think tonight he's gotten on base. I think he's only been at bat once, and he got an infield single. He beat it out. He's quick in the outfield. He's playing center field most of the time. He's made some great defensive plays, both with catching and assist with throwing guys out. He's still pretty exciting to watch. And, being, 22, 23, he's going to take some time to adjust. The pitchers are going to adjust to him. And, he's going to take some time to adjust, especially since he came up from AA and not AAA, right? I said he got called up from AA. He didn't even go to AAA. So maybe, eventually, do they send him back down? Possibly. But if, as we're coming again into the trade deadline, maybe we just keep him up all season, because we're not going to have anybody else, So we'll see. The Cubs finally also activated David Bodie after that shoulder separation surgery last fall, and then they DFA'd Jonathan VR. VR was decent offensively, but his defensive mistakes and errors, I think, are what did him in. No matter if he was at second, short, or third, he was just having a bad year with the glove. And it's unfortunate, because he did provide some good at-bats and power, but it doesn't help when your already struggling pitching staff is having to then force more than 3 outs. Things that should be an out, he's not making the plays, or, even if maybe they would have been like a hard hit infield single, or a hard played single, it turns into a double because he missed the ball. So, I think unfortunately his defense it did him in. We also DFA'd Clint Frazier, and he was sent outright to AAA Iowa. He could have chosen free agency. He decided to stay with the Cubs in the minor leagues. He wasn't like fantastic, but he wasn't horrible either, to be fair. He was hitting about 216, which honestly is on par with most of the team, but there just wasn't room for him at the time. He went on the IL for a little bit because he had that emergency appendectomy. And there wasn't really room for him at the time in the outfield, especially with calling Morrell up, and, he kind of came on fire. And so here's a fun fact that I actually just learned about Clint Frazier. He's now asking the Iowa Cubs to call him Jackson. So it's Jackson Frazier. I guess when they introduced him at bat a game or two ago, they said, now coming to the plate, Jackson Frazier. And the audience, the fans at Iowa, a couple of claps, didn't realize it was Clint Frazier. I guess apparently Clint is his legal first name, and he's used it his entire career. But from what I understand, his mom really wanted to name him Jackson. His dad said no. They overrode the decision, so they named him Clint and used Jackson as his middle name. But a lot of his family and friends call him Jack or Jackson as a nickname. And I guess he wanted to change it when he was with the Yankees, but the Yankees kind of squashed that idea. They're like, no, we don't want that to become the focus of the story in the middle of your career and take away from you playing the game. So kind of a clean slate. And, he kind of jokes. He said, well, Clint got DFA'd, but Jackson didn't. So right now he's going to be known. He's not legally changing his name, but he's being asked to call Jackson, be called Jackson Frazier. Frank Schwindel has now been added to the IL with a low back strain. I'm telling you, it's from that pitching, right? They had him in there as a pitcher, position player pitching, because they were getting blown out. A couple days later, they had him pitching again, even though he was only throwing like 35 miles an hour. But he's a first baseman. He doesn't, throw much. And it was like 2 or 3 days after he did the second pitching appearance that he went on the IL with the low back strain. Jason Hayward is now on the IL with right knee inflammation. He still continues to struggle offensively. I'd be curious to see how much his offensive numbers would pick up once they ban the shift. He hits a lot into the shift, and a lot of people are like, oh, there he goes, hitting at second. But the second baseman isn't always playing where the second baseman normally plays. So I really kind of wonder how much, if his offensive numbers would go up once they ban that shift. And then Michael Hermosillo now has gone from the 15-day IL to the 60-day IL. Nick Madrigal is back on the IL with a left groin strain. That poor guy just can't stay healthy. And Seiya Suzuki is still on a rehab assignment in AAA. He had a setback with his finger injury. And, honestly, there's no rush to bring him back. Because, again, we're not really competing for anything. Other than maybe playing spoiler. But I'd rather have him heal fully than rush him back and have him potentially cause more damage or not play to 100%. Trying to adjust his swing to account for the finger injury. You don't want him to have him do that, right? You want him 100%, especially given the state that the Cubs are in right now. Over to our pitching. Wade Miley went back onto the IL. He was activated again on June 10th, but he hasn't pitched since then either. I honestly don't know what's going on with him. He's not on the active roster. He's on the 40-man roster, but he's not on the active. So I don't know. There was no transactional history that they showed. They showed that they activated him back on June 10th, and he pitched against the Yankees when they played him that game, and then that was it. Like, you haven't heard anything since then. Alec Mills is also back. Marcus Stroman is still on the IL with the low back strain, and then Drew Smiley is on the 15-day IL with a right oblique strain. The pitching is kind of all over the place. The only regular starters right now are Kyle Hendricks, who still kind of goes back and forth between throwing, gems or like quality starts and then just getting rocked. Justin Steele and Keegan Thompson. Both of them have been mostly pleasant to watch. There are a few rough spots here and there, maybe like a bad inning or something. But overall, they're probably the two most consistent starters we have. And then our bullpen has mostly just been a revolving door between the majors and AAA, kind of just filling in holes here and there, calling people up, sending people down, people going to the IL, Rowan Wick, I honestly don't know what's up with him. It's much like Kyle Hendricks. He's just been getting knocked around almost every time he comes in. Like he'll get a batter out and he looks really good, and then all of a sudden, he might get a second batter out, and then the next like four guys just like smoke him, and he'll give up a couple of runs or something like that. So and honestly, that's been most of our bullpen, just getting rocked. I don't know. Like in April and May, it was the bullpen that was really good. And again, like I always say, stop me if you've heard this before. The bullpen is good, but the starters, like they can't go more than a couple innings with, out giving up a ton or throwing a ton of pitches. And then the bullpen comes in and they're having to either hold a lead, a slight lead, or try to keep us close enough to give the offense a chance. And then all of a sudden the starters get on track, and then because the bullpen was used so much, they start getting hammered, right? And again, this is only June. And maybe with the exception of David Robertson, he was fantastic the first 2.5 months, and kind of got lit up for like a game or two, so the ERA got bumped up a bit. But I mean, he's still back and still a little shaky when he comes in. He might give up a hit or two, but he usually gets out of it. So I mean, honestly, this is going to be a short podcast, guys. That's about it. I just don't know what to say. I feel like a broken record, but there just isn't much to report. I don't know. They keep saying that this is not a rebuild year, but I don't know what else to call it. We're playing, I don't want to say we're playing with all AAA guys, because that was like the second half of last year. When these guys are on, they're fun to watch. And a lot of them have a ton of energy. But I have a feeling, the guys that we signed, I mean, we already DFA'd VR. We already DFA'd Clint Frazier. Simmons isn't the best offensively. He's got a great glove at short, but he isn't in all the time. Nico Horner's our starting shortstop, as he should be. And you can throw, Simmons over to second, especially since, Madrigal went back on the IL, but now David Bodie's back. So it's like, I feel like these guys that we signed, like they filled some temporary holes, and then that was it. And, after the trade deadline, again, I think Contreras is going to be gone. Happ, maybe. The guys that are the mainstays here, they're not going to be here. And we're going to do what we did again last season. I don't see them trading for big names. They're going to get minor leaguers or people that we can bring up through the system. And I mentioned before, start paying attention to our minor league teams. Pete Crow Armstrong, he's lighting it up. These guys, they're so good. The Myrtle Beach Pelicans won the first half. They were the first half champions of their, the single A. So pay attention, because you're going to want to know these names. These guys are going to come up in the next, year or two, maybe three. They're amazing to watch. If you can catch them live, if you're in the area, I'd love to go to a Myrtle Beach game. If you're in the area, I know Marquee Network shows the Iowa Cubs from time to time. And, if you're on any social media, on Twitter or anything, follow them. They report all the time, and they give these guys stats. There's a couple of people that are on Twitter that follow a lot of minor league players. And I'm telling you, start following them, because and start knowing the names, learning their positions, etc., learning what they do, learning their strengths, learning their weaknesses, and see them come up, because they're going to be good and they're going to be exciting. It's going to be like having a team of Christopher Morrells, right? But yeah, I that's about it. I only made it to one game this past month. I think I have at least 2 in July. My son just went again the other night for his birthday game. He got upgraded seats again from my amazing season ticket rep. Fortunately, he didn't get any autographs this time. But in honesty, the Cubs are 3-0 when he's gone. He's gone to 3 games and they haven't lost yet. I might need to start bringing him to every game. But we'll see. We'll see what July and the trade deadline brings as we get closer. Again, I have a feeling it's going to be another yard sale. And that's just the way it is. And again, like with Wilson, right? I'll be surprised if he stays, but he's going to be a free agent, and maybe we trade him, get some players, and we re-sign him. I don't know. But for those of you that say you miss Javi and Rizzo and KB and Schwarber, KB's been on the IL for a good portion so far this season, so he's not doing much in the Rockies. Rizzo's having a pretty good year on the Yankees. Had a little bit of soreness and things like that, but he's having a pretty good year. I've got him on my fantasy team, so I keep up with them pretty good. Javi, I think his batting average is a little down, but he's been making some really good defensive plays, as he always does. El Mago, quick with the gloves, or with the glove, I should say. Schwarber, I just saw a stat today that Schwarber's hit as many home runs in the month of June as the entire Detroit Tigers team, which is where Javi's at. He's at 12. So he's doing pretty decent. But again, they're not doing any better than they were here. So do we miss them for nostalgia's sake? Yes, because these guys are legends. They will remain Chicago legends forever because they did bring us that World Series. But they're not doing anything like amazingly offensive with their other teams. Rizzo's just having a good year like usual. Schwarber's having a good year. Javi's a little down, and again, KB's been hurt. So that's about it. July, we do also have the All-Star Game. In July, we have the Home Run Derby. We have my favorite All-Star event, the Legend and Celebrities, the charity softball game. I love that. I actually like that almost more than the Home Run Derby, because it's so funny. And it's so much fun to watch. I wish it got more airtime, because they don't air it until after the Home Run Derby. So it's always like 10:30, 11 at night Central Time when they air it. I always stay up to watch it, and they cut a lot of it. It's only on for like 45, maybe a half hour, sometimes either a half hour or an hour, but they cut a lot of it. But it's so fun to watch, and I wish it really got more airtime. Same thing with the rookie game. I wish the All-Star rookie game got more airtime. And more hype. They hype up the All-Star game itself. They hype up the Home Run Derby, but there's so many more things going on at the All-Star events. And I really wish they kind of marketed the other things that they have a little bit more. But that's about it. So, again, we'll see what this month brings with some trades. Like I said, the trade deadline isn't until August 2nd, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of trades coming through the month of July, and as we get towards the end of July. I don't think, usually it's like you get a couple like a day or two before the trade deadline, when it used to be right at the end of July, and then the last day of July it was like boom, 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 boom. I never got any work done on the trade deadline day. So I might have to circle August 2nd and not expect to get any work done. But we'll see what happens. So remember, you can listen to our Baseball Together casts wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, review, share with your other baseball friends. Remember to click on the Baseball Together link in the description. Use that discount code of CUBPOD to save 15% off of all of your North Chicago apparel. As always, feel free to send me any questions, suggestions for topics, etc. And I'll see you all at the end of July, and maybe some Kleenex next to me with some of these guys that might be leaving. Talk to you guys later. Bye.